Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the SEAMEO INNOTECH Research Partnership Grant 2023 Paper Presentation and Awarding Ceremony. I am Mona Lisa Aguilar, and I will be your host for this afternoon. We are very happy that you have joined us in this event. We hope that you will learn a lot from our distinguished speakers, and through this event, we would all be able to formally introduce the new grantees and research fellows for SIRPG Batch 2. This event is organized by SEAMEO INNOTECH as part of the SEAMEO INNOTECH Research Partnership Grant or SIRPG mechanism. The main objective of this event is to disseminate the research outputs from SIRPG pilot implementation or the SIRPG Batch 1, document the signing of the research partnership agreements or the RPAs for SIRPG Batch 2, and award the new grantees as research fellows. Here's the program of activities for the event. We will start now with the entrance of SEAMEO colors, followed by the Philippine National Anthem, and we will be ending by 4:30 in the afternoon. May I request everyone to please stand for the SEAMEO colors and the Philippine National Anthem. Thank you, everyone. You may now take your seats. To formally begin the event, let us hear a welcome message from our SEAMEO INNOTECH Center Director, Professor Leonor Magtolis Briones. A round of applause.
I believe I am among friends. I usually start my speaking spiels with an apology because I'm always late. And so I have earned the nickname the late Professor Briones. And such reputation I have to maintain. And but really apologies because the pressure of work is quite overwhelming, especially as you approach the middle of the week. So in the name of SEAMEO INNOTECH, our staff, we are very pleased, delighted, and happy to greet each and every one of you. We're glad that you made the long trek, especially the La Salle, no? All the way to our campus to share with us your views on research and your major findings. All of you look very familiar to me because we meet in many other occasions involving research. I feel that I am among colleagues because I too am a researcher. I started my professional career as a research assistant to the great Jose Abueva. And it has become a tradition in UP that those who do well in research are the ones who are invited into the faculty. So from research assistant, you can be associate and then you join the faculty. So the background and the training in research is quite solid. So we just don't get new faculty without looking at the research record because after all institutions rely and really value research. So I feel that I am among friends who sympathize with our insistence that information, that policy has to be research-based. One of the interesting aspects of SEAMEO is that we tend to do things comparatively. We use the comparative approach. My favorite example is the study when as Secretary of Education, I asked SEAMEO INNOTECH to do a study on motivation. What motivates a teacher to become a teacher? We are told that they are neglected, they are underpaid, they are overworked. But why do we have 1 million teachers and perhaps an equal number waiting in the line? So that was one question I asked. What motivates a teacher to become a teacher? And the results were very surprising. And since many of you are with academic institutions, I'm sure you appreciate the fact that research is, you can teach without research. You cannot just recite or deliver a privileged lecture from the top of your head, you know. And these days, the challenge, of course, is to be much faster and much quicker than our learners themselves, because the approach to teaching is that we share each other's views and reflections. So itong SEAMEO INNOTECH Research Partnership Grant is a means by which we support collaborative projects. This is one feature of SEAMEO INNOTECH, collaboration, which probably is not found among other research institutions, to facilitate the richness, the diversity, and depth of the center's research portfolio. And we also, from our own earnings, we fund relevant research that are aligned with the expectations, with the thematic priority research areas which we identify. And the products of our research that would include what you are looking at now, you have very interesting topics, will be transmitted to the Department of Education to also to enrich their curriculum and also to our own training programs. So the findings are translated into training. But before training, you cannot just, all of you know that you just don't stand there and talk your head off these days, because the kids can immediately tell whether they are better than you. So this research grant, partnership grant, specifically aims to enhance the center and prospective partners' capacity in educational research within and beyond Southeast Asia. Because right now we're already moving out of Southeast Asia to the rest of the world, like Middle East, Africa, and so on, in one of our major projects which we had. And so we are very grateful that you have volunteer ba? You have offered your expertise, and it's always good to be exchanging notes, ano, and maybe we can reduce the level of marites and what else. No, only research can can perhaps help solve our prevalent culture of marites and maricon and whatever. Because when there is no data, you speculate, you guess, you watch body language, and this is happening in many agencies also and organizations. Kasi kung kulang sa data, kung kulang sa information, mag-iimbento o mag-speculate o yung sinasabi nilang mag-read between the lines. Oo. Ay, si ano nakasimangot, nag-away siguro sila. Nagsigawan yung dalawang legislator. Ano kayong pinag-awayan? Oo. O may girlfriend na bago, etc. So, last June 2022, our RPG had already completed the implementation of the first batch of research partnership between the LSU. We have, as a faculty member of NCPAG, we have had very pleasant relationships. Some of our faculty move on to you. But we don't mind because the net gain is that of the country also, and we like to share what we have. And I have very good memories of De La Salle University. I admire their scholarship programs for low-income girls and boys. They have this huge scholarship program, which is managed by no less than your president himself, whom I have talked with. So I'm very happy to reunite with De La Salle. And also with Vietnam National Institute of Educational Sciences in Vietnam, respectively. The research theme for the pilot implementation is on practices in teaching assessment of transversal competencies in primary schools. This is right along the alley of DepEd, and we hope to share your findings with DepEd for their consideration and perhaps policy action. And constant communication and transparency plays a vital role for the effective implementation of RPG. This is the batch 1. It enabled early detection and resolution of issues, promoted shared understanding, build trust, encourage collaboration, and facilitate continuous learning. By embracing these principles, it became a foundation for a successful project, and we're very proud of it. I don't know if I was thinking to issue a press release, but I don't know if the general public is interested in research. They're very excited already about the next 2 elections, which are just nearby. So, but we'll try anyway to really give emphasis on the research-based aspect of what we do, especially in our academic institutions. So, RPG Batch 2 research theme is contextualizing 21st century skills in different realities of learning among children affected by intra- and inter-country migration and marginalization. This is actually a serious issue because We are moving all the time. Everywhere you go, you bump into Filipinos who have already integrated themselves into the national scenery of whatever country they are in. And so there are countries which whose rules might make it difficult for children, for example, of domestic helpers and so on and so forth, to be able to integrate into the educational system. So there are many possibilities. I wish we had more money, but we have to earn money ourselves to be able to fund researchers. Yes. Our budget from national government, wag lang akong i-quote, is a very humble 150 million. And that's nothing compared to the hundreds of billions that government also spends in other activities. So today, the RPG Batch 1 graduates will present the results of their research, and we will be awarding the next batch of grantees and research fellows. I don't know if it merits public attention, because generally, we just talk as we please, we gossip as we please, we pass on speculations as we please. So the idea of having to do research, of verifying facts, of exercising critical thinking may not be appealing to media, and but we'll try our best. Now, let me express my thanks to each and everyone here, especially to our presenters from De La Salle University. I had occasion to personally deal with your president, and I have a number of friends with whom I have an ongoing debate. We always debate which is the better school, De La Salle ba o Siliman? We don't think about UP, because I did my first degree in Siliman. So thank you very much, De La Salle and Vietnam National Institute of Educational Sciences. And also our next batch of grantees from De La Salle University. Also, wow, ano pa talaga kayo sa research. Sino ba ang guilty party? Bakit you really have a very strong research bent in the university, and that's the function of the academe. National University on my right, and then we also have the Royal University of Phnom Penh and St. Paul University. I have a first cousin who is St. Paul's sister. Okay, so let's move on and proceed.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Professor Leonor Magtoles Briones. Ayan. Indeed, collaboration and participation is of great help to push forward the trust in the education sector, not only within the center, but also, of course, our partners, you, our research grantees, and also our end users. Again, thank you very much. Now, to proceed with our program, to give us an overview of the SEAMEO INNOTECH Research Partnership Grant Mechanism, may I call on Educational Research Unit Head, Dr. Sherlyn A. Almonte Acosta. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. I am really honored to be here in front of you with these grantees. Maraming salamat for applying in the SEAMEO INNOTECH Research Partnership Grant. Now, I'm supposed to give an overview, but I think most of those information were already given by our beloved Center Director. So maybe I'll just go over it again. So next slide, please. Okay, so when we started this, just a bit of a story, we had a very lean staff. In fact, it's still true up to this point in time, but there are additional staff that we have right now, there are new staff. But it all started because there were few people in the educational research unit. And because of that, we decided, despite few number of staff, we have reached diverse and depth portfolio of research here in our unit. So only in our unit alone, there are so many research that we're supposed to do as planned. How much more with the other units, the educational innovation unit. Now, or education, the EIU of the AREO, or Educational Research and Innovation Office. So we decided, we thought that the way to do this is by giving grants so that we could implement all the planned research that we have for certain fiscal year. So there we developed this research, SEAMEO INNOTECH Research Partnership Grant. And all the research, all the teams are actually aligned with our thematic areas. Mentioned by Dr. Briones, we have thematic areas, and definitely all the teams, all the research that we plan are aligned to this SEAMEO, or the SEAMES one SEAMEO thematic, focus area. Now, so there you go. We decided, I think that's 2019. So we developed the guidelines. It took us a lot of time to develop all the necessary documents so that we could proceed with this research partnership grant. And so with that, another consideration is we really recognize the expertise of the people in the academe, the people in the different SEAMEO centers, the different research organization. And because of that thinking, we have this research partnership grant. We recognize the expertise, and we believe that we could also learn from these researchers around us. Okay, and moving on, next slide, please. So these are the objectives. These are actually mentioned already by Dr. Briones. So to enhance the center and prospective partners' capacity in educational research within and beyond Southeast Asia. So we're moving, not only in Southeast Asia, but beyond Southeast Asia. Second objective is to generate and support research initiative interest relevant to SEAMEO INNOTECH's priority research agenda. So we are also targeting the different SEAMEO centers to come up with their proposal, and hopefully the next batch will be having proposal from our SEAMEO centers partners. So there, the focus should be within the priority research agenda, or rather priority research agenda of SEAMEO INNOTECH, and of course that's aligned with SEAMEO research agenda as well. Now, foster collaboration, stronger networks, and active partnership among education policy researchers in Southeast Asia, in the region, and of course, beyond the region. So partnership is very important. So we really would want to have a strong partnership with the different research organizations, of course, the universities, and different NGOs, international NGOs as well. The third one is to promote, or should be fourth, promote multidisciplinary collaborative research among education researchers in Southeast Asia, then increase the number of research output, research, and impact of SEAMEO INNOTECH and partner organization institutions. So in this particular partnership, we all know for a fact that we all benefit to this. You increase your portfolio, we increase our portfolio as well. So I think this is one of the important elements. So we help each other in this partnership. Number 5 is enable and facilitate knowledge sharing across SEAMEO centers and the region. So this is why we have this activity. We need to share, we need everybody to know what has been done, what has been accomplished by this partnership grant. All right, so as to the type of research partnership, we have bilateral organization partnership. This is SEAMEO INNOTECH and the partners. Could be university, it could be SEAMEO Center, it could be NGOs, INGOs, or other development organization. The other one is multilateral organization partnership. This is yet to be explored. Why? Because we have not received any proposal We highly encourage a proposal wherein there will be one university, for example, another university, and then SEAMEO INNOTECH, or INGO University, then SEAMEO INNOTECH. So that's for the multilateral organization. And we are really looking forward that in the next call for proposal, we'll be receiving a proposal, and it falls under the multilateral organization partnership. So spread the good news. And so after the process, for you to have an idea of how it happened, so we had this call for proposal, we had awarding, now we're having the awarding ceremony. You will implement, we will implement research. I think one thing good about the second batch of SIRPG is we will partake in the research implementation. So we are really hoping that our staff, or we in general from the Educational Research Unit, will learn on how you do research. So it's something that we are looking forward to as well. And then we will monitoring we will monitor, of course, at the same time. That's a process, or that's a way by which we monitor the research implementation. But of course, we trust you on how you do research. But I think paramount to that is we will be learning from you. Then evaluation, I think this was already experienced by DLSU. So DLSU evaluated us on how we are as grant mechanism, or partakers of the grant mechanism, or the one who give the grant. And then the other aspect of the evaluation is we evaluating the grantee. So there's this process. Now, the other one is dissemination of research output. This is one of the activity of one of the dissemination activities. So the other one, we have publishing to journal, or journal article is one of the mechanism to disseminate the research output. Then we have the certificate of completion. So this is basically the process and how things will happen for those who are new grantee. So we give you the certificate of completion when everything is done, everything is liquidated. And also here in the awarding ceremony, you are aware that you will be given you are a research fellow, so you will be given the certificate as research fellow as well. Okay, next slide please. Parang 2 minutes, 3 minutes and all. So baka they're afraid that I will talk a lot, no? Okay, so again, this was already mentioned by Ma'am Liling. The first batch, this is the team, practices in teaching assessment of transversal competencies in primary school. And personally, I'm very excited to hear from the grantees themselves on the findings of the study. So we'll have one from BNIES, Vietnam, and of course, DLSU. So BNIES will present online. And for this batch, for this team, next slide please, contextualizing 21st century skill in different realities of learning among children affected by intra and inter-country migration and or marginalization. By the way, this particular team was actually inspired by Philippine Overseas School. So that was the real intent. But then we made it broad so that we could also see how the context of Southeast, or what is the context of Southeast Asia under this, considering the notion or the concept of migration, marginalization, and of course the 21st century skill. So this is the team, and we are happy and we are looking forward that you would successfully finish the implementation of your proposed research. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Dr. She, for sharing the overview of the grant. So before we begin, let me remind that our online viewers in Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, you need to accomplish the online evaluation form to receive a certificate of attendance for this event. Also, if you have any questions or concerns with regards to presentations, please use the comments section, and we will try to answer your queries during the open forum. Now, let me introduce our presenters for this afternoon from SIRPG Batch 1. Our first presenter is Dr. Alan B.I. Bernardo from De La Salle University. Dr. Bernardo is a psychological scientist and educator who is currently a distinguished university professor and university fellow at De La Salle University, Philippines. At De La Salle University, he heads the Psychology of Hope and Well-Being Research Laboratory. He is also a research faculty affiliated with Social Development and Research Center, Dr. Andrew L. Tan Data Center Institute, and Southeast Asia Research Center and Hub. He is a registered professional psychologist here in the Philippines. He has also published over 270 articles, books, book chapters, monographs, and edited books. According to Google Scholar, his works have been cited over 5,900 times, and his current age index is actually equivalent to 43, which ranks him among the most cited Filipino scientists in psychology, education, and social sciences. His current research focuses on lay theories or cultural ideologies, specifically polyculturalism and intergroup and intercultural processes, social psychological dimensions of socioeconomic inequality, poverty, social prejudice, social mobility, and other applied social psychology topics in Asian societies. He has been very active in professional psychology and social science organizations since the early years of his academic career, advocating development of scientific research, capacity building, collaboration across institutions and countries, especially in Southeast Asian region. Dr. Bernardo will be presenting the result of their research study on global competencies of Southeast Asian high school students, exploring the PISA 2018 and CPLM 2019 Global Competence Survey using data mining approaches. Let us all welcome Dr. Alan B.I. Bernardo. It's up to you. You can present in your seat or you can also.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for that rather long introduction, but thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Dr. Briones, first I'd like to extend apologies of Brother Bernie Oka, our president. He has to attend the president's meeting in AUN, so he's not here right now. But I would also like to hazard that among everyone in the room, I'm the one who knows Dr. Briones longest. She doesn't remember this, but we don't like to mention it, but we were together in UP in the early 90s. Dr. Briones and I were in the UPC IDS together. Of course, she was our Ma'am Liling, working with Ma'am Ledy and Maluduronila. I later realized your nieces were my classmates and friends in UP, Gail and Delilah. But she was always been Ma'am Liling, and it's a good opportunity to see you again after so many years. I'd like to express my thanks to SEAMEO INNOTECH for organizing this event because the Batch 1 RPG grantees were all online. So it's good to see actual people and to have some actual interactions with other researchers. And I'm very happy that I'm with our colleagues in NU and St. Paul's, Sister Nilda, Engineer Fernando. And I only have 15 minutes, so I have to talk very fast about our study, which is on global competence of Southeast Asian students looking at the PISA and CPLM data. Next slide, please. So the inspiration for the study, next slide, please, actually comes from the articulation of global competencies or global citizenship education as one of the hallmarks of quality education according to the UNESCO Declaration of Education for 2030. So we zoomed in that global citizenship education in particular. Next slide, please. And just for a broad definition, of course, many people define global education in different ways. But for purposes of the study, we'll define it as education of students in the shared values, knowledge, and habits of thinking that are needed for effective participation in a globalized world. Now, we did this study involving all the ASEAN countries involved in CPLM and in PISA. So there were actually 6 ASEAN countries who participated in CPLM and 7 ASEAN countries who participated in the PISA. But I don't have time to present the complete results, so I'm going to be talking about the Philippine analysis involving PISA. And this is already published if you are interested. Now, as you know, global education is articulated across different courses or subjects in the Philippine curriculum. There's no explicit global education curriculum, and that's why we thought our study would be helpful in our very resolute move towards developing this. And in the Philippines, some of the challenges that have been articulated relate to how one will integrate a global perspective in a curriculum that has associated civics education with strong nationalist citizenship. No? But this is the same tensions that are seen in other ASEAN countries, and that is why among the SEAMEO ministers of education in, I think, 2017, there was an articulation that we should be very careful in terms of how we impose global education frameworks in our specific countries. And we have to respect our history and our local cultures. So, however, the good thing is that in the Philippines, we participated both in the PISA and the CPLM, which articulated global competencies framework. So we feel like that's a pathway by which we can pursue this discussion. Next slide, please. So just as an example, for the CPLM, they focused on global competencies as having 3 content domains, which is systems, issues, and dynamics, awareness and identities, and also engagement. And in the CPLM assessment framework, they focus on 3 cognitive attitudes and behavioral skills. However, we should clarify that in the 2019 CPLM, cognitive outcomes were not included, and the focus was, if you just click, please, just the attitudes and values. Next slide. Can you please click? Yeah. So those are the content domains. Yes, click. Yeah. And another click. There you go. So the data that we will refer to the last 2 measurement subdomains. If we go to the next slide, I will begin talking about what we did. So in the CPLM framework, there are actually 6 global citizenship education factors, which we call indices, and they refer to exposure to global citizenship, perceived importance of global citizenship, concerns about global issues, Asian identity, intentions to do global citizenship behavior, and intentions to participate. So you will see that the last 2 are the behavioral intentions, and the first 4 are the more attitudes and values. And what we did, next slide please, is that we tried to use machine learning to try to understand the structure of ASEAN students' current global competencies. And that's what machine learning allows us. So it mines big data to observe patterns that may be meaningful and useful in terms of characterizing what our students currently know. And we also wanted to see how the other competencies may be integrated or related, because in theory, global competencies should be an emergent integrated factor. Next slide, please. So what we did was, as I said, we applied various machine learning approaches. So we tried to determine which type of algorithm would best capture the patterns that we wanted to see. In total, we actually analyzed data involving 79,319 students from 10 Southeast Asian countries. But what I'll be presenting with you for you this afternoon comes from the analysis of 6,083 respondents rather. Of course, the database is much bigger. These would be our grade 5 Filipino students. And we included in the big data set 7 indices that I mentioned earlier and the 63 variables. Next slide, please. Okay, I will not try to scare you with the data analytic techniques that we conducted, but this is what we went through in terms of analysis. Next slide, please. And this slide just shows you that the patterns that we actually extracted from the data were very accurate. So if you see both in the training and the testing data, we achieve very high accuracy scores for our algorithms and models. Next slide, please. So, okay, no more numbers, promise. But this, I'm going to talk about each of the domains now, okay? So for example, when it comes to exposure to different topics, we found that for the students, only 8 of the topics tended to predict this index, so, which suggests that there might be some topics that are not covered in a way that is integrated with global competencies. For example, these topics relate to pollution in the Philippines and in other countries. We feel like although there's this discussion in the curriculum, they're not integrated to global awareness. Maybe it's connected to more environmental awareness and not global citizenship. But we also found some interesting predictors. For example, participation in school activities like class discussion and debates, students' awareness of global matters and feelings of being connected to the world are positive predictors of this competency. However, as I mentioned, talking about pollution in the classroom and even talking about their intentions to vote for their class leader did not associate with it. So we feel like there may be some topics that are discussed, but they're not treated in a global manner. So maybe they're treated in a very community-based or national framing. Next slide, please. I have to go fast. I know I only have a few minutes left. The CPLM asked students whether they thought these citizenship topics were important. And the good thing is all topics were predictive of the index, so that's a good set of items. We also found good predictors, for example, concerned about environmental matters. Again, speaking in debates is a very good activity that predicts this index. And even behavioral intentions like willingness to tell someone that they see littering to stop doing it, and also voting for their class leader predict how they view these topics to be important. Okay. Next slide, please. We also, not just whether it's important, CPLM asked them whether they thought this was something we should all be concerned about. And again, the index was pretty good, although the topic on pollution and extinction of plants and climate change, again, was not integrated. So we feel that the discussion of environmental topics may not be framed as connected to global competencies. So somehow maybe it's being presented more as a local concern and not a global concern. And then again, we see the same voting for leaders, speaking in debates are very good pathways towards these topics. But sense of belongingness to the Philippines and awareness that Philippines should help each country is important tend to negatively predict this index. I'm going to discuss what we think that means later on. Go to the next slide, please. Asian identity. I should mention that the Philippines scored very low in terms of Asian identity, lower than the other counterparts. No? But all the items work well, but there were positive predictors. Here we find that beliefs about societal issues like fairness and racial harmony, willingness to engage in global activities, and also their perceived importance of global topics tended to predict Asian identity. Next slide, please. Just 2 more results. Here now we're talking about behavioral intentions. Again, the items tended to cohere well, so very good patterns there. But again, the intentions were predicted by things like awareness of current events. See, I don't know when I was young, we had current events in our elementary school. Now I don't know if we cover that. But again, discussion of environmental topics, participation in debates and elections, and perceived importance about learning about other countries tended to predict this behavioral intention very well. And finally, also their own next slide please, their own global citizenship behaviors, very good set of items. The only item that did not predict it well was the intention to make friends with someone from another country. Maybe it's just too remote a possibility. But again, the same activities, awareness of how their lives connect with children in other countries, discussion of global topics in class, sense of belonging to the country, and beliefs about fairness in the world tended to predict this behavior. Now, that's a whole lot. Sorry, I needed to cover quite a bit. But let me just try to conclude everything in the next slide. So what we see is that generally, as far as the Philippine data is concerned, the CPLM items generally work well. The ones that did not work well, we think indicate possible tweaks in the curriculum so that we frame it more global. One interesting observation is that there is a difference between covering a topic and building concern about the topic. So for example, although pollution in the Philippines and other countries is covered, that does not necessarily relate to the students' concern about the environment. So it's very cognitive. It's not about attitudes and values. But there are some beliefs that we feel are very good entry points when we want to strengthen global competencies. Things like focusing on pollution as a global concern and not just a national concern. Nurturing that feeling of connectedness with other children in other countries is a consistent factor. Realizing that natural disasters affect other countries, and natural disasters in their countries affect our country also, is a factor that tends to predict competencies very well. And valuing how countries affect each other and learning about other countries. So from the Philippine data, we see many possibilities where we can scaffold and build global citizenship competencies. And we feel that even if there's no global citizenship curriculum in the Philippines, there are beginnings of the integration we see. Now, I have to tell you, we analyzed this for all countries, and the patterns are very different, and we're still working on the publications. But we feel like there is a very good seed upon which we can scaffold building this TVC in the Philippines. I think that's where I am. Yeah. For some reason, debates are very good in nurturing global citizenship education, but class elections is not. I think, Dr. Liling, maybe elections are too contentious in our country, that they're not a good pathway. Too early. So that is a very inconsistent predictor, but debates and classroom discussions are shown to be very good activities for nurturing this. Okay, now I think I'm ending. Okay, so there's my conclusion. Even if we don't have this curriculum yet, we feel like there are already emerging seeds and some coherence. And although there are discontinuities, we believe that there are scaffolds in the curriculum that can be built. No? Just related to this, we also have rich data from the PISA on the same competencies, but with 15-year-olds. And there's more exciting results to speak of. I have to end now. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you for painting the picture.
Mona Lisa,
Yes.
sorry for interruption.
Go ahead.
Interruption. At this point, I'd like to introduce our newly appointed Deputy Director of SEAMEO INNOTECH. The terms of reference of SEAMEO provides that the Deputy Director has to come from another country. And Kochakorn here is a Thai lady, very involved in youth and networking, and she worked directly with the Minister of Education of Thailand, and she's on loan from us, but I hope the loan remains unpaid. So welcome to Kochakorn. She just reported last Monday. This is to emphasize actually the need for balance in the ASEAN region. SEAMEO INNOTECH is not run by Filipinos alone, but the rest of the community has a representative.
Thank you so much po, Ma'am Liling, and of course to our new Deputy Center Director, Ma'am Asidre. Thank you. Ayan. So again, thank you, Dr. Bernardo, for painting the picture to us. And that is such an insightful presentation. Personally, as an advocate of education for sustainable development, I find the study as some sort of a flagship study which steers the importance of developing global competencies among the Southeast Asian students in the education sector, in the Southeast Asia and beyond. This can lead to better understanding and appreciation of GCED and its integration, of course, in the educational curriculum, not only in the Philippines, but, in the Southeast Asia as a whole. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Bernardo and Dr. Melissa Carapiles. Okay, next up, our second presenter is in Zoom. Yan. Dr. Leanne Vin from VNIES. Professor Leanne Vin is the General Director of Vietnam Institute of Educational Sciences, or the VNIES, and also the Director of Center for Sustainable Development of General Education Quality. He has great experience in educational research and management. Before becoming the Director General at Vietnam, or the VNIES, Ministry of Education and Training, he has worked many years of training and working abroad. He has held many different positions, from being a teacher, a lecturer, an educational administrator in schools, to being a researcher and a manager at the National Scientific Research Institute. Experiencing these various positions brings him a thoughtful understanding and insightful look in the education system. In addition, he is a leader and a member of many educational organizations with close connection with the Ministry of Education and Training and all the Department of Education in Vietnam. He has led and organized successfully many national and international research projects, which funded by the government of Vietnam and by prestigious international organizations such as UNICEF, UNESCO, IDRC, GNI, to name a few. Dr. Bean will be presenting their research about practices in teaching and assessment in transversal skills in primary schools in Vietnam. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome Dr. Leanne Bean.
Hello. Yeah, good afternoon. And first of all, I would like to thank you all, and thank you, SEAMEO INNOTECH, for sponsoring the research conducted by VINES and also organizing this event. So we have chance to say about our research. I would like to ask if I control my presentation myself or someone will show the slide. So if I do it myself, can you turn on the sharing option for me?
We are controlling the presentation for you, Dr. Vin.
Okay, so I cannot share the screen yet. So can you turn it on?
Just tell us when to move the slides. Thanks.
Yeah. Can you turn on the sharing option for me?
All right.
I cannot do it yet.
All right, sir.
Mhm.
You can already share your screen, Dr. Vin. Thank you.
Yes, I will try again. No, you haven't turned on the sharing option for me, so I cannot show my presentation yet. I think the technical from side need to turn on the sharing.
All right. Can you try that again, Dr. Vin?
Yeah, let me try. Mhm.
You're already a host, Dr. Vin.
Yeah. Oh, not yet. I think.
You still do not
Not
have
from-
permission? All right. Let us check on our end again. Thank you. All right. Can you try that again, Dr. Vin?
Yeah, it's good now. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.
Okay, so please let me start. So I would like to present about the project has been funded by SEAMEO INNOTECH. The title of the project is Teaching and Assessment Transversal Competency in Vietnam Primary School during the COVID time. So we will look at that from both in class and online teaching. And I would like to say that, the research has been very closely aligned with the previous presentation when we're talking about transversal competency. And I think it will be very important topic that to mention, especially for the Southeast Asian country where we have a high priority for the knowledge base, and the ZZ, the transversal competency and the soft skill are very important things that we need to put a priority in the school. So the content of my presentation will be three parts: the project introduction, the research result, and some of the recommendation that the finding of the research. About the project, the sponsor is the SEAMEO INNOTECH, and the duration is from the April of 2021 until June of 2022. And we have two key research questions. The first question is, what is the practice of the teaching transversal competency in the classroom teaching and the online teaching in the Vietnamese primary school? And the second question is, what is the practice of the assessment transversal competency in the classroom teaching and the online teaching in the Vietnamese primary school? These two questions are very important. First of all is how the teacher teach, the practice of the teaching, and we all understand that if there's no assessment for the transversal competency, many teachers will just drop it, and they know it's very important, but it will be very difficult to implement it without a kind of enforcement of the assessment for this competency. So the methods that we implement the project is we first do the literature review, and we collect the data, interview 15 teachers, observe the online class time for 15 sessions, review 15 lesson plan, and we do the questionnaire for more than 600 students. The research sample is 2 public schools, both in the rural and urban, and 1 private school urban in area in Hanoi. But for that private school, the size of the private school is quite big, comparable to the other 2 public schools. And then we do the data processing and analysis based on the data that we collected in the phase 2. So you can see here, some of the more information about the school that participated in the research. The location is 1 public school in the rural area and the urban area in Hanoi, and 1 the private school a little bit out of Hanoi. For the public school, we use the national curriculum and some of the school activity. And I would like to mention that 1 public school is belong to the Venice. So besides of the national curriculum and some of the school activity, that school has has done some of the piloting activity and piloting curriculum from the Venice. For the private school, they also implemented the Cambridge curriculum. So they both use the national curriculum and also the international curriculums. And the number of the students in the classroom, you can see for the public school in the rural area Hanoi, it's more than 50 students per class. In the experimental school belong to the Venice, it's from 35 to 40 students per class. And for the private school, it is 25 students to 30 students per class. So you can see the difference between the classroom size is also effects on the quality and how the transversal competency will be implemented at the school. The research framework, we using the descriptive framework for the 21st century learning developed by the Partnership for 21st Century Learning, and we also mapping to the general competency framework according to the new curriculums, Vietnam Curriculum 2018. That curriculum has been implemented from 2020. And here we focus on 3 domains: learning and innovation, digital literacy, and career and life. And for each domain, we identify the accordingly skill that we would like to focus on in this research. For example, in learning and innovation, we focus on 4 skills: critical thinking and problem solving, creativity and innovation, communication and collaboration. For digital literacy, it will be about the information literacy, media literacy, and the ICT literacy. And for the career and life, it will be 5 skills that you can see on the slide. So here for the research result, I will have 3 parts. First one, it will be the practice of the teaching and accessing transversal competency in the primary school, some good example, and the challenge in teaching and accessing transversal competency. First of all, we would like to mention that for the teaching methods, for the transversal competency, there are four groups. The first one is the group discussion or the teamwork. The second one will be the Q&A, the gamification, and the student presentation. The third one will be the project-based learning, problem-based teaching, and debating, role-playing, exploratory learning, and so on. And the fourth one will be application of the ICT in the teachings. And we can see that here you can see the key finding for that. For example, like the Q&A between the teacher and among student method is a high preference by the teachers. And the reason for that is easy to implement in the class, take less time, and it can develop the student communication skill. The group discussion and group work is also for the high preference, and also for the application of ICT in the teaching, their own high preference, because the main reason is it's easy to implement in the class, and also, it can get the commitment, the engagement of more students, because they will have the chance to present the idea, chance to participate in all of the teaching process. The student presentation and gamification is only moderate preference in the teacher perspective on teaching method to develop the transversal competency. The reason is because it's difficult, more difficult than the previous methodology, even though it's also easy to implement in the class. But we see that, for example, in the gamification, the student may be interested at the beginning, but they may lose, the engagement, or they can, lose the concentration on the main purpose, main content of the specific subject or class. For the project-based learning and the debate, is level the usage is a low preference by the teacher perspective. The main reason is it's not easy to implement in the class, take longer time to implement, and need to support from the stakeholders. However, we all know that the project-based learning and also the debate will develop the student communication skill, collaboration skill, critical thinking, and problem solving and creative thinking. In the previous presentation, we have heard that the debate is also a very good chance for the student to improve the ZSET and the transversal competency. But you can see that in practice, for the primary school in Vietnam, the teachers think that it's very difficult to organize in such a way. And if we organize like that, only limited number of the students can participate in the activity. Actually, if we can organize it in the right way, we also can engage, the further discussion from all students, not only the limited number of the students. So it is the finding that we find, and I think it may be a point, a place for the improvement in the future. If the teacher want to promote the project-based teaching or promote the debate method in the teachings in the class. For the assessment, we see that there are several forms of and tools for the evaluation, like the formative assessment and summative assessment, teacher, student self-assessment, peer review, review from the parents on communities. We also see, the teacher will promote the observe and record the learning process, and evaluation the student products, presentation, project, product, and so on. And more traditional way will be the classroom test. And for the frequency degree, we can see that more frequent use will be observation, Q&A, gamification, group work, or presentation, and less frequently used will be the written test, project work, or the student learning product and portfolio. And it is the area for the improvement if we want to promote for the transversal competency in the classroom. For the teaching and assessment resource, the main resource will be the textbook and the teaching material. And we also see that the teacher has been very innovative, especially during the COVID time, when they make use of the ICT and when all of the offline learning has been moved to the online learning. At the beginning, at the first year, we see that it is kind of the physical movement where the teacher provide, the online learning as a replacement for the offline learning. But in the second year of the COVID time, we see that the teachers are very innovative. They really think that online teaching will be the chance for them to improve learning. So we can see the teacher from the primary school, they adapt very quick. They make use of many online teaching tools to make their classroom become more interesting and more engagement to the student. And it is a plus point. And we all hope that, after the COVID-19, when things become normal, the student come to the class, the teachers provide the in-class teaching. They still can make use of the technology that they have adapted during the last 2 years. There are some of the good examples that we want to mention. You can see, from the full report, but I would like to mention here that, for example, like the project-based learning, it has been done in a week, and the teacher prepare and announce the group information. Each student will receive the leaflet with the necessary information, and within a week, with the support from the parent, all of the groups will complete their products. They will discuss and present the work in front of the class and answering the question, and the product can either be the poster presentation or the mind map and so on. So it seems like, the project-based learning can be done, but it will require a lot of the preparation from the teachers and also the support from the parent as well. So it's quite challenging for, the in-class work. And here you can see some other good example from the research findings. For example, like to promote the peer assessment between the student and the student is a method that often used in the group activities, and it's engage the evaluating from the student, and it promote the healthy environment in the classroom. And we've also find out that the use and the encourage of the family information is a very important when the teacher can get the support from the parents. Now I would like to come to the final part of my presentation when we mention about the challenge and some of the recommendation. For the challenge, we see there are 5 key points. First one is the lack of the strategy and guidance from the MOET and from the school for the teacher to promote the practice of the teaching for the transversal competency. The second one is the mismatch between the program and the teaching times, especially in the online teaching. The program is quite heavy, so it's very difficult to integrate the new teaching methodologies in the classroom. The third one is the teacher capacity, their understanding, their skill on the transversal competency. The fourth one will be the too many administrative activity at the school that limited the time to focus on the teacher expertise. And the last point will be the number of the student and the diversity of the student, the change of the psychology. As I mentioned to you, the classroom size are very different from the 3 schools. One school will be more than 50 students in the class, and for the private school, only 25 students in the classroom, and it makes a huge difference. So the recommendation that we find out, from the research, first of all, we need to issue the specific strategy from the MOET, and the school need to develop their own strategy and plan with the specific focus and roadmap on promoting transversal competency. The second one will be the teacher, focus on the teacher capacity building for them, training on the program implementation, training on the transversal competency, preparing documentation and so on, and building the network of the teacher. And for the teachers, we need to focus more on the new methodology, new pedagogy, like the project-based teaching, case-based teaching, role-playing and debate and so on. And we need to use a variety of the assessment form methods, the tool for effectively measure student skill. And the fourth point will be the collaboration among the stakeholders. We need creating the opportunities for the student to participate in the community activities for associate learning in practice, solving practical problems, and educate and evaluate students comprehensively, not only by the test, but also, looking at, the more well-rounded for the student. And we need to move from the record to the student portfolio. So it is some of the challenge and the recommendation and the finding from the research that we would like to share, to honor the participation of this meeting. And we would like to thank again for SEAMEO INNOTECH, not only for the funding to the project, but also about the supporting and the collaboration for the whole time that we implement the project. And we also have been joined to public some of the research results in the international journal as a bonus to the work that we have done. Again, thank you very much for this chance for me to present about the research.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vin, for that presentation. What I like about the presentation or the study is that although transversal skills focuses on the technical or the hard skills, the study is still able to surface the soft or the human skills in terms of collaboration still and participation. In fact, in the more frequent, I think if I remember it right, the more frequent or the most used tool or with high frequency includes group work and teamwork. And I think that is an example of human or yung the soft skills. And I think that is important, that it also highlighted that collaboration among the stakeholder is very relevant and important in creating enabling environment for our students. So yeah, thank you again, Dr. Bin. All right. Now, I think we are ready to accommodate the questions of our participants here in the hall and also in our live audiences and online viewers. Anybody from here? Do you have questions? Because I have here from YouTube for Dr. Bernardo. Yeah, it's from Dr. Christian Milambiling. He's asking, using machine learning in research is quite a new method in research. What insights and learnings can you share from your experience in utilizing this method?
Yes, Dr. Christian, thank you for that question. Indeed, machine learning is relatively new in the education research community, but in the past 5 years, there's been much more interest in applying these techniques, especially as there are now large data sets that can be analyzed. No? PISA and TIMS have been around for many years, and there's a growing appreciation of how powerful analytics can make us observe patterns that we don't ordinarily see. So, unfortunately, most of us who do work in education are not trained in machine learning, and that is why in our case, we partnered with the Angelo L. Tan Data Science Institute in DLSU, and aside from this, we have actually produced several analyses of PISA data using data analytics. So I think in terms of insight, one, it challenges us to go beyond the theories that we are so familiar with, because the data often point to patterns that are not easily to make sense of. So it challenges us to think beyond the box, so to speak, to make sense of the data. And I think the more positive insight there is that I think using machine learning algorithms together with more traditional statistical techniques can provide us very broad and new insights in long-standing on long-standing educational problems. But the most important condition is that we have good data. So that's the bottom line. No? Now that the Philippines is part of PISA and TIMS and CPLM, I think those in the Philippines have that opportunity to apply these new approaches in our studies.
Thank you, Dr. Bernardo. And just to add, I think it's also important that this research, these technical terms, can be translated into a language that the end users can understand. So it won't be just be stuck in our shelves, and so it can be utilized and make sense and appreciated by the with the community, with the education community, and of course, our end users, as I mentioned earlier, the students, the parents, and the whole community. Thank you so much, Dr. Bernardo. Now we have question also for Dr. Vin. And Dr. Vin, can you hear me? Yes,
Yes,
thank
yes.
you. From Ms. Kat Toralba. Yan. There are several frameworks in the 21st century skills. What were your considerations in choosing the appropriate framework for your research?
Yeah. So I agree with you. There's many different framework on the 21st century skill and transversal skill, and it is not commonly agreed. I mean, somehow, and has been promoted by the different organization and the different groups. But the main idea for us is we would like to make a mapping from that framework with the new curriculums. You know that I mean, starting from 2018, Vietnam have the new national curriculums, and we would like to move from the knowledge-based curriculum into the competency-based curriculums. And in that competency-based curriculums, besides of some of the subject competencies, we also mentioned about the general competency. We mentioned about 6 pairs of the general competency, and we would like to map with that competency with the 21st century skill. So that's why I mean we select. I mean the one of the most common used framework is the descriptive framework for the 21st century learning developed by the partnership for the 21st century learnings, and we map that framework with the general competency from the Vietnam curriculum 2018.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Bean. And just to add, of course, the research framework, it serves as a backbone to any researcher. It's very important that we are able to use, say, in the case of Dr. Bean, they use the most popular, the most used framework, but it also depends on the researcher which framework they think would work for their studies. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Bean and Dr. Bernardo. Ayan. So we may not have been able to respond to all the questions that we have in our LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook broadcast, but we hope that everyone have learned something from the presentation. I myself really learned something, so thank you. We'd like to thank again our presenters, Dr. Bernardo and Dr. Bean. And let's have a round of applause for SIRPG Batch 1. And Ma'am Liling, you may want to say...
My comment is not related to the,
Yes.
two major topics which have been dealt with efficiently and has provided us with much information. My interest is Alan's interest in psychosocial well-being and mental health. During our recently concluded youth summit, one of the major requests and recommendations of the ASEAN youth leaders is that we should really pay attention to psychosocial and mental well-being, because all the physical things are in place. We have the ministries of health and so on, but they emphasize that. And so probably in your other researches, you may want to look at it. I don't know if SEAMEO can do something also, but it is an issue that we have to respond to, because these young people are going to own the world. They're owning the planet. They will lead our country and our region. And if such a question pops up, then there is a degree of, uncertainty and perhaps even fear. And you have seen that in the statistics on young people and their mental health adjustment. And this does not only cover the learners, but also we have problems with the teachers, which crop up already in the course of their jobs because of all this unpredictability. So that might be of interest. It's a demand of the young people.
Thank you, Dr. Brion. Actually, Dr. Dads and I are both in the EdCom 2 Standing Committee on Basic Education, and I'm the member who is in charge of the well-being of students and also learning environment. So there are many research projects going on. And in the LSU, for example, I think we have 5 projects that trying to map out the problem, also understanding predictors of bullying in schools, and also what is being done in the school. So I really appreciate that you articulated this concern because it's a very important, long-standing topic. And you're correct, ma'am. It's not just the children, the teachers also are in dire straits. I'm actually reviewing a manuscript of a project we're doing at PNU on the distress of teachers during the pandemic. And there are also gendered factors when it comes to that. Perhaps in the future, well-being of students and teachers can also be a priority area in the RPG. But I do know that in the research community, there is a lot of awareness on this problem, and we're doing a little bit by bit. But I think, ma'am, you're correct that looking at this at the scale, not just in the country but all over, is important. In a related note, we're trying to form a adolescent health consortium of researchers from Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand, the Philippines, and mental health is going to be a focus. So it's not just in the Philippines but in the region. We're trying to really figure out what's going on. It's building up.
Building up in the among the ASEAN member countries and elsewhere. Of course, it's global. It's a global phenomenon which is of concern to us because these young people are going to take over, and then they want to be ready, and specifically they mentioned this particular concern.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bernardo, and of course, our Center Director, Ma'am Liling. I agree to both of you that it is also important to look into the emotional stability in terms of emotional quotient, adversity quotient, being it a new paradigm in the intelligences, adversity quotient of our youth. So I'm also excited to see that idea fly, and soon we'll have a research that can be utilized by the youth and, of course, the community. All right, so after our first batch has successfully shared their research, again, congratulations to our first batch, we now have the second batch who will commence with their studies. To signal the start of our collaboration, Innotech and the partner institutions will be signing the Research Partnership Grant Agreements, or the RPAs. May I call on our SIRPG Batch 2 grantees from De La Salle University, National University, Royal University of Phnom Penh, who's with us online, Zoom, and St. Paul University, Quezon City, to please come forward to sign the Research Partnership Grant Agreements. We have Sister Maria Nilda C. Masira, University President of St. Paul University, Quezon City. You may take your seat here in front, Sister. We also have Engineer Alexa Ray, R. Fernando, who's representing Dr. Renato Carlos Armita, the University President of National University. We also have Dr. Alan to represent the DLSU President, and of course, our dear Center Director, Professor Leonor Magtolis Briones, please, in front for the ceremonial signing of the agreement. We also have online Dr. Sok Sot, the Dean of the Faculty in English, who is going to be represented by Dr. Ke Sambo. All right. Thank you so much, DLSU, NU, RUPP, and SPUQC. Now, you are all formally declared as the grantees of SIRPG Batch 2. A round of applause. Thank you so much. All right. So, you may now return to your seats. Thank you so much, everyone. As we proceed with our program, let us listen to the presentations of our grantees, and then after their presentation, there will be an awarding of certificate to them after everyone has presented their research papers or research overviews. To start off, we have again our first grantee, a previous awardee of the SIRPG with the research title, Contextualizing Multicultural Global Competencies, Education for Children of OFWs. The main research proponent is Dr. Alan B.I. Bernardo. With him is Dr. Melissa R. Garabiles, the co-proponent of the research. Let us hear from Dr. Bernardo about their topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. Again, first, let me thank SEAMEO INNOTECH for giving us a second chance to keep contributing to their important priorities. And to my batch 2 colleagues, let me tell you that our experience the first round was a very happy and productive experience. I think you are all in good hands. And I hope that we also have opportunities to work together, even if our projects are separate. So our topic is actually a more specific component of our research related to global competencies. And in response to the call for contextualizing 21st century skills, we decided to focus on how we can further contextualize the GCED curriculum with reference to the experience of children of OFWs. Next slide, please. I will not talk about GCED in very much detail, only to emphasize that it is, as often indicated, a multidimensional concept. As you saw in the CPLM, several domains and subdomains as well. In this particular study, we were interested in the domain of intercultural competencies, and which tends to be very strongly associated with important citizenship behaviors in many multicultural societies, but may not be strongly nurtured in countries like the Philippines, which are not highly multicultural. Next slide, please. Now, this also overlaps, Dr. Mel Garabiles and I are both psychologists, so it overlaps with certain approaches in research in social psychology that looks into knowledge and beliefs about cultures and cultural interaction. So there's a variety of ways of characterizing people's beliefs and values regarding how cultures relate to each other and how cultural groups relate to each other. So this is the broad theoretical background, but the inspiration from this study actually comes from, I don't know, Ma'am Liling, if you remember, in a speech you did, next slide please, in one of the conferences in Europe, where you talked about, you talk about we have a global phenomenon where our Filipino learners engage the global environment because their parents are actually global workers. So we got this inspiration from your talk in that European conference, and we thought that the families of Filipino OFWs actually provide a very unique entry point into discussing global citizenship education. So the main question that we wanted to pose was, what are the constructions of cultures and intercultural relations that emerge from OFW families' experiences? So, because I have to be brief also, next slide, please. The first research question actually is very open-ended. So we wanted to know, what are the conceptions of inter or multicultural competencies of children of OFWs? And do these conceptions relate to experiences that their parents, their mother or father have shared with them, Or do they also get this from popular discourses about OFWs, which may or may not be consistent with the experience of their parents and families? But we also, next slide please, we're interested in finding out in a bit more precise way, what are their lay beliefs about culture? No, so we are interested in also assessing in more precise terms their knowledge, attitudes, and beliefs about what culture is, how that relates to national identity, and how that relates to their ideas about how cultures should relate to each other. And we wanted to see whether these were different from children whose parents are not OFWs. And the final research question in this RPG, next slide please, is what are the implications of the children of OFWs' conceptions and beliefs for the design of global citizenship education curriculum? We did not propose a clear hypothesis, but our assumption is that whatever data we'll get will provide scaffolds for contextualizing something that is extremely theoretical. And we think that the experience of OFW families can provide very concrete pathways to make the GC Ed curriculum very meaningful. Next slide, please. What we plan to do is a mixed method study using triangulation design, where qualitative and quantitative studies will be undertaken simultaneously. We plan to interview students who are children of OFWs. We're focusing on senior high school students. And for the quantitative data, we plan to administer surveys and on their different beliefs and attitudes related to cultural diversity and cultural interactions. We will compare both children with OFW parents and parents who are not OFWs. As a limitation of the study, we focused on Region 3 and 4A, which are the regions where there are the highest numbers of OFW families. And we focus on senior high school students because we feel like they're a little bit older to have discussions with their parents and they can articulate some of the experience. We couldn't go too young because there would be also ethical issues. But the older students might not, it may not be relevant for the depth ed if we focus on college students. No? Next slide, please. Yeah, so the expected outputs, this is my last slide, is from the qualitative study, we expect to articulate themes related to their constructions of global citizenship competencies. So the idea is that these constructions may or may not overlap with existing frameworks of global citizenship education. But more importantly, it may indicate concrete exemplars of the concepts that teachers and curriculum developers can use. In the same way, we wanted to do a descriptive analysis of the lay beliefs that we would get from the questionnaires and see whether there are differences of children depending on whether they have OFW parents or not. And again, these could give very specific guides to curriculum developers about what knowledge is there and what knowledge are contradictory, and again, what can be providing scaffolds when developing the competencies in the formal GCED curriculum. So hopefully all of this will help us give suggestions for contextualizing global citizenship activities and behaviors. Currently, there is no global citizenship subject, but the main entry points would be the Aralin Panlipunan at Edukasyong Pagpapakatao, and maybe even across English, science, and so on, as possible pathways where we will make suggestions, drawing from the experience of OFWs. But more importantly, we wanted that the children of OFWs will not be invisible from these discussions. So we wanted our educators to see that the OFW families' experiences are actually resources for developing these very important emerging curriculum component in basic education. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Bernard. Such a nice research proposal. And seeing the research questions, I am imagining the things that would emerge from those. And of course, that you're using triangulation. And I am imagining also, on top of my head, what would be the themes, the internal validity, the plausibility, and when you share these results to us, just right now, I'm very excited to know already. So again, congratulations to you and Dr. Ganapides. Next up, we have from the National University. Um, their research title is Assessing 21st Century Skills in the Alternative Learning System Setting. So this one is ALS, a conceptual, praxeological, and social-emotional perspective. Their primary research proponent is Dr. Jesse Esparra. With him is Dr. Arnold A. Enego, Dr. Leo Estel Rosario, and Dr. Ronald L. Reyes, and of course, Mr. Richmond Charles D. Vilay. Let me call on Dr. Barrett, please, to present.
Thank you so much for that introduction. And firstly, I would like to thank SEAMEO INNOTECH for this grant, for allowing us to be your partner in advancing education and educational research in the Philippines. And this topic is very important to us because we really would want to focus on the underrepresented group of our community, which are the youth at risk. No? And of course, you know that because of the advent of technology nowadays, no, there's the pedagogical concept of 21st century learning has emerged. And it's very, very important for us to really fully understand it and incorporate it into our curriculum, and also on how we can probably assess 21st century skills. Although this is a very popular concept, there are several challenges when it comes to assessing it and integrating it into the curriculum because it's somewhat abstract, like the transversal competencies. So that's really a challenge nowadays. Even if we want to really incorporate it, that's one of the challenges that we have, no? How we can probably reliably and validly assess the students from this perspective. So there are attempts on how we can assess 21st century skills into the mainstream curriculum. There are challenges also, and it's more challenging when we try to assess 21st century skills within the context of alternative learning system. Really, really challenging. And one important aspect of assessing 21st century skills, particularly in ALS context, is teacher quality. So that's why our focus on this study is assessing the 21st century skills in the alternative learning system setting, and our target participants here are the teachers. Just like what was mentioned a while back, teachers are very, very important. They play a very crucial role in the success of our educational system. And so we wanted to focus on three key questions. Yan. So the team was presented a while back. So first, we would want to understand the conceptions of teachers on assessing 21st century skills. And basically, this is focusing on teachers' understanding of teaching, learning, and assessment. And we also want to know how these teachers integrate 21st century skills with their assessment practices. And this would focus on how teachers navigate assessment and how they integrate assessment into their teaching. And then lastly, we would want to understand how teachers manage the socio-emotional aspect of assessing 21st century skills. And this mainly focuses on how teachers work with different stakeholders to improve their assessment practices. And this one is theoretically anchored on Pastore and Andrade's three-dimensional model. Next slide, please. There. So as you can see, we will be focusing on the conceptual dimensions, praxeological dimensions, and socio-emotional dimensions. And we would want to figure out also if there are possible interactions among these three dimensions. Basically, the conceptual dimension focuses on teachers' knowledge. The praxeological dimension focuses on teachers' pedagogical skills. And then the socio-emotional dimension would focus on teachers' disposition. Next slide, please. So to address these research questions, we will be using a multiple case study approach. There will be 32 secondary teachers from ALS sites to be invited from four different regions in the Philippines. So we have from NCR, we'll have 32 divided by 4, that is 8 per region. So I need some mathematics here. So 8 from NCR, and then Region 4, Region 7, and then Region 11. And then we will be doing interviews, semi-structured interview, and classroom observation for the purpose of triangulation. And then we will be doing cross-case thematic analysis as our way to analyze the data. Now, after completing the study, our target outputs would be, first is, hopefully we can have a training program framework for the ALS teachers, particularly on assessment. Some possible interventions to support the development of 21st century skills of the marginalized group, which is the youth at risk. Some policy recommendations also for this underrepresented group. And we hope to have a primer also for the systematic integration of assessment of 21st century skills in ALS context. And most probably, some of the insights that we would be getting from this study can be also applicable to basic education in general. So, but of course, that is very particular to ALS context. So there, so those are our potential contributions. So with that, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Barrett and the MU Research grantee team. Okay, our third grantee is from Royal University of Phnom Penh. The primary research proponent is Dr. Kesambo. With him is Mr. Nick Pisset. The research title is Examining the 21st Century Skills and Different Realities of Learning Among Children among Muslim religious schools and state schools in Cambodia.
Please allow me to present the overview of our proposed research project. This study entitles Examining the 21st Century Skill in Different Realities of Learning Among Children from Muslim Religious Schools and State School in Cambodia. Rationally, this study is proposed due to the evidences from the literature and practices that possessing the 21st century skill lead to having a better academic performance, academic success, employability, work productivity, and social harmony. In reality, the 21st century skill level among learners across education settings are lower than expectation, and it is concerned that the level of skill of younger age learners from minority group is lower than those of majority group. Therefore, this study is to compare the levels of 21st century skill in language learning of early adolescent students from Muslim religious schools and state school in the Cambodian context. As a survey study, 600 of 12 years old students who from the two learning realities will be measured their existing levels in each component of the 21st century skills, following by the statistically comparative analysis. This study will be significantly impactful for the promotion of inclusive education among younger learners at classroom setting through this scientific evidence. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ke Sambo and Mr. Nick Piset. Our fourth and last grantee for Batch 2 is from St. Paul University from Quezon City, Philippines, with the research title Knowledge and Practice of the 21st Century Skills among Aita Mag-Indi Learners, Basis for Developing a Contextualized Skills Enhancement Program.
St. Paul University, Quezon City, in partnership with SEAMEO INNOTECH, undertakes a pioneering research on the knowledge and practice of the 21st century skills among the Aita Mag-Indi learners, with the goal of developing a contextualized skills enhancement program. More than problems with accessibility and availability of educational facilities for the Aita Mag-Indi is the discrimination and marginalization caused by the cultural insensitivity and lack of understanding of lowland teachers and students. Today, they are caught between the demands and pressures of modern living and culture and preserving their indigenous life and culture. The survival of their community rests now on ethical integration into the mainstream Filipino community and life, and at the same time preservation of the essentials of their indigenous culture. There is scant research on the life and culture of the Aita Mag-Indi, and less knowledge is greater marginalization. Thus, the research was conceived to bring into the forefront their needs, especially in education, that they may not be left behind. As advocates of culture and minorities, academic institutions have the responsibility to make their voices and concerns heard and served by social institutions. The project aims to determine the level of knowledge and practice of ITA intermediate schoolers in relation to the 21st century learning, literacy, and life skills, and to design and implement a competency based intervention program that will help them gain and develop the skills. Such aims are identified to contribute to the achievement of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 4, quality education, and number 5, reduction of inequalities, and in the long run, number 1, the elimination of poverty. These goals are of interest to the researchers and St. Paul University Quezon City because we committed ourselves to become gleaners, to serve the least, the lost, and the lost, and to be all to all.
All right. Thank you so much. St. Paul, Quezon City, St. Paul University, Quezon City. Their primary research proponent is Dr. Marlon Patrick P. Lofredo. And with him is Dr. Helen M. Rigor, Dr. Madeline E. Menor, and Dr. Antoniette Z. Lacerna. Again, a round of applause to all our SIRPG Batch 2 grantees. And we will not let this moment pass since the Batch 1 uh, were online during those times that they were granted with the research grant. So now let's take advantage of this event. So let's have a group photo documentation while we also award, while also Dr. or Professor Leonor Magnolis Briones will be presenting the certificates to the grantees. Thank you. You can move to the front, everyone, or it's they can stay. Okay. All right. So, shall we do it per institution? So they can have a group photo with Dr. Briones, or we want it to do as a whole already? Are we doing it per institution? I'll call on De La Salle University. We have Dr. Alan Bernardo and Dr. Mel Garabiles. The certificates will be awarded, of course, by our Center Director, Professor Leonor Magtolis Briones. And of course, our Deputy Director, Ms. Kochakorn Asidre and Sir Dads, in awarding the certificates. Again, our primary research proponent from De La Salle University is Dr. Alan B.I. Bernardo, and co-proponent is Dr. Melissa R. Garabiles. All right, thank you so much, our research grantees from De La Salle University. Our next grantee, of course, from National University. Primary research proponent, we have Dr. Barrot, Jesse Barrot, the primary research proponent. With him are Dr. Arnold A. Iniego, Dr. Leo S. Del Rosario, Dr. Ronald L. Reyes, and Mr. Richmond Charles D. Viray. May we again request the Center Director, the Deputy Director, and the Manager for Educational Research and Innovation Office to award the certificate. Thank you so much. To end National University, our research fellows from the National University. We also have from St. Paul University QC, and also from RUPP or Royal University of Phnom Penh here in Zoom live with us. We are also congratulating Dr. Ke Sambo, the primary research proponent, and Mr. Nick Pisset. All right. Congratulations and thank you for joining us over Zoom, Dr. Sambo. And our last grantee for this batch, we have St. Paul University, Quezon City. Primary research proponent is Dr. Patrick P. Lofredo. With him is Dr. Helen M. Rigor, Dr. Madeline E. Menor, and Dr. Antoniette Z. Lacerna. To award the certificate, we have our Deputy Director, Ms. Cochacorn Asidre, of course, our Center Director, Ma'am Liling Breones, and Sir Dads, our Area Manager. Thank you so much and congratulations everyone for officially being part of SIRPG Batch 2. Before we end, may we remind our online viewers from YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook to please answer the end of program evaluation form through the link posted in the chat and comment sections. You can also scan the QR code you can see on the screen. E-certificates will be sent within 2 weeks to attendees from Zoom and YouTube and Facebook Live who have accomplished the evaluation form. Please note that we will be closing the evaluation today, July 4 at 11 o'clock in the evening. Please also follow our social media accounts at SEAMEO INNOTECH on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for further details. All right. To wrap up this event, may we call on Dr. Diosdado M. San Antonio, Manager of Educational Research and Innovation Office of SEAMEO INNOTECH, to give us the closing remark. The floor is yours.
Maraming salamat, Ms. Mona Lisa. In the name of the Educational Research and Innovation Office of SEAMEO INNOTECH, I wish to say thank you to our dearest Center Director, Professor Emeritus Leonor Magtolis Briones, for leading the MANCOM in approving the grantees for Sir PG Batch 2. We spent our one MANCOM meeting to talk about your research projects, and eventually the decision was made. And so we're very grateful to Ma'am Liling for showing us that you have to work very hard so that we can produce excellent outputs. And nobody, I think, in the center can outdo our center director when it comes to hard work. She's the last person to leave the center most days. And she even comes to the office during holidays. Those things we cannot do. So thank you, Ma'am Liling. Of course, I would like to welcome once again our Deputy Center Director, who is 2 years old in the center, Dr. Kotchakorn. You're welcome to the center, and we're very grateful that you have joined us here. Of course, we're very grateful also, and we congratulate the first batch grantees of the Research Partnership Grant of the Center, De La Salle University and Vietnam Institute of Educational Sciences. Your reports, I know you have more to share, especially in terms of publication, will definitely deepen knowledge and understanding of things that need to be understood by people relative to global competencies, global education competencies, and transversal skills as far as the Vietnamese study is concerned. We also are, of course, very happy to congratulate the grantees, repeat grantee, De La Salle University, and our new grantees from the National University, from the Royal University of Phnom Penh, and the St. Paul University. Your projects focus on different things around the theme that we have identified for this batch of the Research Partnership Grant. And we feel that through your new research projects, we will be able to generate more knowledge and enable the school system, particularly the Philippines and Cambodia, and perhaps the other countries in the ASEAN region, to learn more about the things that we also have to understand better. I would like to personally commend the team of Dr. Che Acosta for the hard work, the patience in navigating the bureaucracy within the center so that you will be chosen properly. And I think most of them have been able to receive the first tranche of the grant so that they can commence the research project. Am I correct in saying that the first tranche has been processed, so ready to be distributed? So congratulations to ERU for spending lots of time as well in making sure that the assessment was fair, and we were very thorough in our decision to recommend to the MANCOM relative to the awardees for this year. I think it's very obvious that in the 21st century, partnership, networking, collaborating with others is not only an important skill for human beings, it's also a very good skill for organizations. And the center, SEAMEO INNOTECH, obviously is able to survive, thrive, and continue to soar because we've been able to nurture partnerships around not only the country but also around the region, and in fact in the whole world. Right now, SEAMEO INNOTECH is also a consortium partner of the Improving Learning Outcomes Asia Initiative of USAID and RTI. And in fact, there's a workshop going on, which is also our way of providing technical assistance to BEA in terms of analyzing data for research. So the project SIRPG, we call it SIRPG here, is IRPG for others, is a manifestation that the center and of course AREO, the Educational Research and Innovation Office, will also continue to nurture partnerships because as mentioned by Dr. Xie, it's a way for us to be more productive, to be able to accomplish more, achieve the things that we have set ourselves to accomplish relative to the priorities of the center. Because we have very lean teams. Ma'am Liling and I, having served a bureaucracy of almost or more than 1 million people, had a culture shock when we joined the center with less than 100 personnel. And but the quality of the outputs has been, of course, at par with. It's always beyond very satisfactory. I would say is always excellent because we work with highly competent and very committed partners like yourselves. So, congratulations once again to Batch 1 recipients and all the best for our Batch 2 participants. Looking forward to a celebration of your outputs when we award the third batch next year and recognize the results of your investigations, which are very interesting. Thank you very much once again, and may God bless us all.
Thank you, Sir Dads. Right. We would also like to invite everyone, if you don't have, we recently opened our White Room Art Gallery, so you may want to drop by before going back to your organization or going home. There are very nice art pieces in that gallery, so you may want to take advantage of this moment that it's just recently opened. All right, and also snacks are being served outside, so you may want also take advantage of that. So this concludes our program for this afternoon. This has been Mona Lisa Aguilar. Thank you everyone for joining us in this event, the SIRPG 2023 Paper Presentation and Awarding Ceremony.
Innotech, we have come with hope so bright. The billion